let me very quickly, very briefly, fast forward the biography of King Saul. That's how you say Saul? I'll be calling him Shaul, okay? It's easier for me, okay? Saul. Doesn't make sense to me, so I'll be calling him Shaul, okay? So, very briefly, the biography of Shaul. He was from which tribe does he come from? Benjamin. He's from Benjamin. What does it mean that the first king is from the tribe of Binyamin, of Benjamin? What does that mean? Okay, first of all, Binyamin geographically is the middle of the country, but in the hierarchy of tribes, it's the bottom. The social hierarchy of tribes, Binyamin is the bottom. Now, within the tribe of Binyamin, there are many families. He comes from the family called the Mitri family, Mishpachat HaMitri, which is the bottom of the tribe of Binyamin. So first of all, we have here an incredible story as the story of a king. A person that came from the bottom and made it all the way to the top. Shaul is the American dream. Now, so that's one thing. So we know where he comes from. And who appoints him, anoints him to become the king of Israel? Shmuel. That's an important point. We'll return to this later. Shmuel appoints him, anoints him. And he becomes the king. And he's the first king. And he fights some wars. He's somewhat successful. He unites the people. And then after some victory, God sends him to perform the mitzvah of Mechiyat Zecher Amalek, of erasing the memory of the Amalekites. And the important part of this battle is a different kind of a battle. In all battles, the motivation of warriors when they go to war in ancient times is that they might risk their lives, but if they will come back alive, they will come back with some benefits. What are the benefits? The spoils of war. But the thing, how do you motivate soldiers to go to a war where by definition you can't take any spoil? That's the challenge of the war with Amalek. You're not allowed to take the spoils of war. King Shaul violated the commandments, and he enabled the warriors, the soldiers, to come home with the bizah, with everything they managed to take from the enemy. God gets quite upset, and what does he do to Shaul? He fires him. And who has to deliver the bad news? Shmuel. Today it's easy. You just write a WhatsApp, you're fired. No emotional connections. It's nice. It's elegant. But now he has to actually go face to face, Shmuel, and give the bad news. Can I refer to yesterday's conversation? Is anybody here that wasn't there yesterday? Some people say, okay. Anyway, so Shmuel gives him that, and Shmuel seems very frustrated. He doesn't want to fire Shaul. He says, listen, your time's up. Something will happen. You're not going to be king. Your children won't be kings. One of the next scenes is an interesting moment in Emek Ha'elah. Emek Ha'elah is a little bit to the southwest of Jerusalem. Emek Ha'elah, beautiful place in Israel. There's a battle between the Philistines and the Israelites, and probably most of the representatives of specifically the tribe of Judah, Yehudah, because that's where they are, in Emek Ha'elah, in the valley of Elah, I guess you call it. And the way it's performed, there's one representative of the Philistines, and his name was Goliath, and he moves forward, and he says, okay, send one representative to fight me. And he's very cocky, he's saying, no one has the guts to, and he was right. No one dared to fight him. No one dared to do it. For 40 days, he was humiliating the God of Israel and the people of Israel, and no one had what it took to come forward and confront him. And as a coincidence, this shepherd came to bring some food to his brothers, which are soldiers. What's the shepherd's name? David. And he realizes, Why is this guy humiliating us and no one is stepping up? And I'll step up. And he goes up and he takes a little rock and he throws it at him and it hits him. Bul baponi. Right? There's a reference to Israeli music. Right in his forehead and what? And his third eye. And actually, what really happens, is that David was a very accurate kala, meaning this was his profession. He knew how to be very accurate with rocks, with a slingshot. And actually, this was an asymmetric warfare because Goliath came with his armor and with a spear, and David was with no armor and no spears. So you think, wow, all the advantage is for Goliath. But David thought differently. David thought, it's not that I'm not protected. It's that I'm quick. It's not that he's protected. It's that he is heavy. What David does, and it was what he always does throughout his biography, is he always turns his disadvantage into an advantage and his enemy's advantage into a disadvantage. He doesn't have he doesn't have a gun, he doesn't have a sword, so he just throws a rock, and then suddenly Goliath loses his balance and falls. There's a few seconds he's on the floor. David's quick. There's no armor on him. He runs, takes his knife, chops his head off. What David does, he kills his enemy using the sword of his enemy. He'll always use the force of his enemy against his enemy. There's a lot about David. All this was amazing. People were watching, observing. And now the morale of the people is up. They have energy in their bodies and in their souls. They attack the Philistines, and they win. This is one attack that lifts up national morale, that leads to victory. Okay? The reason why I'm telling this story is because this story had a great impact on the entire family of the king. His daughter, his son, they observe this, and they fall in love with this anonymous shepherd, which happened to have another job. What was his other job? He was a shepherd. He had another job. He was a music therapist. Yeah, he was the music player for King Shaul. And at this moment, and then there is a big parade to celebrate the victory, and Shaul is listening to what the people are saying. What are they saying? They're saying, Hika Shaul be'alafav ve'David be'rvevotav. I don't know how to translate this. Does anybody know how to translate it? Which it means, let me try to translate even a little bit more freely. We admire Shaul, but we admire David more. Okay? We love Shaul, we love our king, but this guy, we like him even more. Okay? The new anonymous person, they didn't stop loving their king. He's just not their number one in popularity anymore. How does Shaul react to the loss? He didn't lose his popularity, he's just not number one anymore. How does he react? He becomes obsessed, he wants to kill David. Now he's starting to fall, he's starting to collapse. Believing if I kill David, I'll be number one again, right? They'll love me again. More than anyone else. Now he obsessively tries to win the love back by killing David. And some crazy things happen. One of the things, there was a moment where David hides in a city of priests called Nov. It was just there for a night. And when Shaul figures out that the priests of Nov were David's refuge, so he kills all the priests of Nov. See how obsessed he gets, how violent he gets, in order to destroy his competitor. And as the story goes, all his attempts to gain popularity, all those actions are going to crush his popularity. And his attempt to gain control, everything he does to gain control, is what's leading him to complete loss of control. That's the story of Shaul. That's the story of Samuel 1. In the beginning of Samuel 2, Shaul dies in a war in Philistines in the Gilboa, which is to the north of Israel, which shows the Philistines were very successful because they're not in Emek HaElah anymore. Now they're also in the Gilboa. And then King David replaces him. And he's a much more successful king. And his son, Shlomo, does inherit the kingdom, and the kingdom will live forever. That's the biblical myth. So let's just notice one thing. That was very briefly, very quickly, the story, the biography of Shaul. And let's just notice one thing for now. In the Bible, Shaul actually was the first king, but he wasn't the founder of the eternal monarchy. It was only the second king that was the founder of the eternal monarchy. Now, this is very biblical. In the Bible, nothing works for the first time. Think about it. God creates a world. Doesn't work out. What is the story of the Mabul, the big flood? What does he do? He destroys everything, starts over again. The second attempt, so far, depends on global warming, so far has lasted. Moshe Rabbeinu climbs to Mount Sinai to bring down the Torah. The first tablets were not the tablets. They broke. Somehow they fell off his hands. They broke. It's only the second tablets that last. For some reason, in the Torah, you always fail the first time around. The Bible, the Torah, and the monarchy. By the way, why do you think we have a tendency to fail the first time around? Anyone here the firstborn? No, just. But there is a thing with firstborn in the Bible that you always start from the second. Also with the brothers, also in the book of Genesis. Yes? But why do you think there is a tendency in the Bible to succeed only after the pilot? Only on the second time? What? There's something. This is very interesting. The Bible is not a Platonic book. There's not like an ideal plan, you implement it and it works. Things only work after you fail. Failing is not what stops you from learning. Failing is a part of the process itself, right? Now, we might see this in the biography of Shaul himself. What I'd like to do now, after we've tried to capture the failure of the first king before establishing the monarchy with the second king, like the Torah and the world, what I would like to do now is to think about the relationship between Shmuel and Shaul. And their relationship will take us a little bit closer to understand the psychological profile of Shaul. But before we do this, I want to say what my agenda is. When we speak about Derech Eretz and ethics and building of character, so I have a tendency to be very Greek in my understandings of ethics. Meaning, there's I had a teacher in Hebrew U, Shmuel Shkolnikov, Zichrono Livracha, and this is, he once in a class, this is 20 years ago, he delivers a class, and he says, what's the difference between the kind of education that Western people receive and the kind of education that the Greeks, Aristotle, delivered? And he said, Western people are trained to think, if I get a good education, I'll have a great career. I'll have a great career. And they ask, that's their ambition. They ask, what am I going to be? Am I going into business? Will I be a lawyer? A rabbi? A carpenter? What am I going to be? He says, Aristotle would never ask his students that question. I mean, he would, but he means something completely different. What are you going to be is not, you can be a lawyer or a doctor. Are you going to be brave? Are you going to be modest? You see, here's the founding difference. Western people think we have a personality, and then we create our life with our personality. The Greeks thought it's the other way around. Our entire life, we create our personality. Your greatest creation in life is your personality. It's not fixed. I have a personality. Now let's go build the world. Now let's go create a life. No, Your personality is your life's creation. And what is a successful life? Not what you created with your personality, but the personality that you created. And that's why the Greeks are very into virtue. What other traits we have to build in our personalities? And this is a very big conversation. And the person who brought this conversation into Judaism is Maimonides, trying to see the Torah as the mitzvot as a part of training. All the mitzvot, according to Mambam, are a way to train your personality to have a stronger and better and more balanced personality. And I'd like to focus on one trait. This is the trait that, in Sifrut Musar, this is literature discussing traits, many saw and still see as the heart of an ethical character. And the trait is modesty. Modesty. If you manage to figure that out, how to be a humble person, everything will come with that. Modesty. And I'm going to think about this through Shaul. But I already want to tell you the end, okay? Maybe modesty is overrated. Maybe, okay, I'll get there. Maybe we have to think differently about modesty. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go into Shaul to try to figure Shaul out. But in the end, I want to figure modesty out. Or what does the book of Samuel have to say about modesty as one of the building blocks of a healthier character, a character with Derech Eretz. Okay, so that's what we'll try to do in the hour and 15 minutes we have left. Am I right? We have an hour and a half of this whole thing, right? Okay. So let's start with Shmuel. And what does he find in Shaul? He was the one who appointed him and anointed him. He was the one. So first let's start with Shmuel. Shmuel is very interesting because Shmuel, as Martin Buber noticed and characterized Shmuel was an anarchist. Meaning, he had a theology that's against monarchy. He wasn't the only one in the Bible that had theological understanding of the world that we're not allowed to have a king. Another person is Gideon, one of the heroes of the book of Shoftim, of Judges. Another person is a prophet of Hosea. By the way, what all three of them share, Shmuel, Gideon, and Hosea, is that they're all northern figures. They're from the north, which leading some biblical scholars to say that there was like a anti-political movement, spiritual movement in north of Israel at that time. In any case, he's a religious anarchist. What does that mean? It means that he thinks that you don't have any legitimacy, any religious legitimacy to control other human beings. Why is that? Well, it's because this is a part of a larger theological revolution we find throughout the Bible. And here's the revolution. In Egypt, they believed that the king was God. In Mesopotamia, they believed that the king is a part of the pantheon, that the king has divine qualities. And in the Bible, the king is not God. It's the other way around. God is the king. And because God is the king, any person that claims to be a king, actually, what does he claim? If God is the king, God has a monopoly over power. And claiming you're the king cracks God's monopoly over political power. So if God's the king, so this is a revolution in the Bible. Believing that the king is not God, it's the other way around. God is king. And now the big challenge of the Bible, how could we have a person that's a king and have God stay the king? This is going to be the theological, political ambition of the Bible, the whole political system of the Bible. I won't go into that, but that will be the agenda. And now, so Shmuel is against monarchy. And he despises the people for asking for a king. And here's the thing. He is the founder of the monarchy. He is the one who appoints Shaul. He's the founder of kingdom in Israel. Now, this is the first tension I want to put on the table today. That the founder of a monarchy was the anarchist. Now, this is interesting that the Bible chose the person that will appoint a king and found a monarchy, the person whose entire ideology is against monarchy. That would be like, now that's not the first time in history. I mean, I don't know, many times we have this moment, right? When someone has to promote a policy, but ideologically he or she opposes. That would be like being a leftist peacenik to start a war with Iran. Or a right-wing settler to evacuate all settlements. Or a privatization cap. Okay, you get it, right? We have this many times where people have now a role to promote a policy, to lead a policy that it goes completely against everything they stand for and believe in. Shmuel is against human beings becoming kings, and he has to create and appoint the first human being in the Bible that will become a king. So that's an interesting tension, but it becomes more interesting because he falls in love with Shaul. Taking us to our second tension. Now, how do I know that Shmuel loves Shaul? So, I want to bring 4 different hints or evidence of the very, very strong emotions that Shmuel has towards Shaul. And I'll do this very, very briefly just so we could establish this. Shmuel appoints 2 kings in his biography. He appoints Shaul, then he fires Shaul, and he appoints David. So what we can do is we could compare the moment where he met Shaul and the moment where he met David. And when you can compare, this is what you see. When he went to appoint David, he doesn't say one word to David. He's completely silent. He takes oil, he pours on him, and he leaves. And he doesn't say anything to him. When he goes to appoint Shaul, so what does he do? He's all over him. He makes him a great dinner. He says to him, Lemi kol chemdat Yisrael ela lecha ulevet avicha. All the yearnings of Israel are to you. And Shaul can't even start understanding why him, from the tribe of Benjamin, from the family of the Mitri, gets all this, he's welcomed by Shmuel. So if you compare how passionate he was about Shaul and now not passionate he was about David, that comparison emphasizes an affection he has towards Shaul. A second moment where we could see his very, very special affection towards Shaul is when he has to fire him. And when he has to fire him, it says that he was screaming to God the entire night. Vayizak el Adonai kol alayla. He's screaming to God all night. He doesn't want to fire him. And when God tells him to go appoint someone else, he says to him, Ad matai atamit abel al Shaul. How long do you need to have lit abel, to mourn the loss of Shaul? Go find someone else. But there's a moment here I want to share with you. Yeah, there's a moment. This is, I think you have this in your text. This is in Samuel 1, chapter 15. One minute, do you have, no, it's not 15, it's 16. Do you have 16 in your text? Okay, so there's just one verse, I'll read it to you. You don't have it, sorry. You have 16? You have in page, well, maybe I'll see this also here. You have chapter 16 in page 10, so So look at page 10, verse 6. So you see, when he arrived and he saw Eliab. You have that? Okay, great. So here's the thing. So he goes to choose the next king. And he goes to Yishai's family. I think you say Jesse. To Yishai's family. And then he sees one of Eliab's sons called, one of Yishai's sons called Eliab. And he's sure that he's the one. He's the one. By the way, I forgot to say, Shaul, one of the traits that one of the biological characteristics of Shaul, that he was very tall. He was a very tall guy. Now, that's important for this moment. So when he arrived and he saw Eliab, he thought, surely then the Lord's anointed stands before him. He says, Eliab is the person. And then God says to him, but the Lord said to Samuel, pay no attention to his appearance or his stature, for I have rejected him. Al tabit el mar'ehu ve'el gova komoto. Don't look at the way he looks, and don't get so excited about his height. What do you think God is telling? What is God telling Shmuel here? Don't judge a book by its cover, but I think he's saying that and more than that. He's saying he sees Eliab and he sees how, and God realized that subconsciously when he sees Eliab being so tall, what is he seeing in Eliab and through Eliab? He's seeing Shaul and he's saying, listen, get over him. You know what? This is the ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend syndrome. I mean, the mythical ex, right? What's the problem with a mythical ex? That anyone you're dating now, you're looking for the last run around. So get over him. Don't look for clean your eyes. And it says Kimastihu. I think what he's saying is get over Shaul. I rejected Shaul. You should reject him too. And finally, I think I'm overkilling this point, but let me just, one last piece of evidence is Shmuel's name. Why is Shmuel called Shmuel? This is in the beginning of Samuel 1. Why is Shmuel called Shmuel? Chana, his mother, named him Shmuel. Why? He says, Ki Shaul hu le'Hashem. Shaul means that he is borrowed from God. Now it's very weird. She says he's borrowed from God. Borrowed means Shaul. So I'll call him Shmuel. Seems like the name should have been Shaul, right? So I don't know how she moved from he is Shaul, he is borrowed, so let's call him Shmuel. I don't know how she made that jump. The text doesn't explain it, but it does understand the inner logic of Shmuel's name is that he is Shaul. So I think we've established a strong connection between Shmuel and Shaul, a connection that is implemented in their name, a connection that's implemented in the fact that he can't get over his loss, a connection that we can see in the fact that when he appoints David, he doesn't say anything. When he appoints Shaul, he tries to give him everything. So, which take us to the second tension. The second tension is that David, that Shmuel, that can't stand the idea of a king, loves this king. He's against the idea of Israel having a king. But he loves Shaul specifically as a king. And why? And so he has an ideology against monarchy, but also he falls in love with the monarch, with Shaul, with the king. That's the second tension. Now let's ask a question. Why is it that Shmuel loves Shaul so much? Why does he like him so much? So let's keep that question open. Let's keep that question open because I think we could figure out why is it that the person that is against kingdom loves the king. I'll give you just a hint where I'm going to. I think it's because he hates the idea of monarchy. That he likes this specific king so much. But let's wait with that a little bit. And I'd like now to read. Now Shmuel has to tell the people that God chose Shaul. How does he do that? How does he tell the people that he chose Shaul? So what they do is something that they used to do in the ancient world. We see it also in the book of Joshua. We see it. It's called the goral. What is a goral? Hagrala is lottery, but goral would look like this. It would look like this. That's a show that, like, God, publicly, that God shows. So, like, this is how I imagine it. Do American kids play, when you spin the bottle? And then I dare you to, you have that? Emet Chova? What? You have to kiss? In Israel, it's a little bit more subtle. But so yes, but there's so it's imagine that is like a so imagine either that way you spin like a bottle, or another theory is that they put like the names of all the tribes of Israel, and they put in the middle a stick. Let go of the stick will fall and will point out to a tribe, and that's the tribe that was chosen. Okay, so they do this. They bring all the people publicly. This is how Shmuel shows the people who God chose as a king. So they put a it doesn't describe exactly, but let's say it's a stick. Okay, so the stick falls, and it falls directing the tribe of Binyamin. Now imagine how the people are shocked and surprised that the person that will lead them will be from the tribe of Binyamin. Now, just to explain to you why this is so shocking, we have to remember the context. The context is the end of the book of Shoftim, the book of Judges. There's a civil war in Israel. And what's the civil war? It's a following civil war. The entire book of Judges is always a story of a local enemy attacking a tribe, and that tribe calling the other tribes to come help them. Sometimes they came, mostly they didn't. The book of Judges is the failure of solidarity. And then, in the end of the book of Shoftim, or the book of Judges, at one moment, all the tribes unite to go to war. What a great moment. There's only one problem. This war wasn't to protect a tribe. This war was against a tribe. Which tribe? Binyamin. It's so nice. Finally, the Jews are united. But they weren't united to protect the tribe. They were united to destroy a tribe in Israel, the book of Binyamin. And then it's a complicated story. But they decide, okay, let's not kill all the tribe. Let's just isolate that tribe and not marry anyone in that tribe. So that's the story. The Hebrews had a very complicated relationship with the tribe of Binyamin. And now they ask for a king. Okay, let's see who God chose. The stick falls on Binyamin. Meaning, if last book you were united to attack Binyamin, this time around you have to unite in order to accept the authority of Binyamin. Okay, and now they bring out, okay, but who in Binyamin? How do you do it now? So you do it again, and the names of all the families in Binyamin are written, and they spin the bottle or let the stick fall, and it points the family of the Mitri. Okay? So now not only that we're going to get a king from Binyamin, we're going to get a king from the bottom of Binyamin. Okay, that's nice. That's a nice thing that God is doing with us. And then now who do you know who from the family of the Mitri? Who is it going to be? Third time, now I guess they have the names of all the members of the male members of the family of the Mitri. And now the stick falls on who? On Shaul. So that's how publicly they all know it was Shaul. And now I would like to read this. I just described you 2 verses. I'd like to read now what's the reaction of the people to this moment where they see the stick is pointing at Shaul. This is Samuel 1, chapter 10. verse 20. Let's read this very quickly. Page 4, okay? You have it? Page 3. Page 3. Okay. So now I'll read what I just described, okay? Samuel brought forward each of the tribes of Israel, and the lot indicated the tribe of Benjamin, okay? Now you have it graphically, right? Then Samuel brought forward the tribe of Benjamin by its clans, and the clan of the, how do you say this? Matriites was indicated. And then Saul, son of Kish, was indicated. But when they looked for him, he was not to be found. So there's a dramatic moment. It's Shaul. They look for him, and he's not there. So you have an anticlimax. Where is Shaul? They're looking for him, and then the people say to Shmuel, they inquired of the Lord again, has anyone else come here? What they say in Hebrew is, Havu od halom ish, which means, well, Shaul is not here. Let's spin the bottle again. Let's try again. Okay, he's not here. He missed out. Let's throw the stick again and see, and maybe we should start all over. I assume what they really wanted to do was start all over again. Start all over again. Can't be Binyamin. Let's start all over again. But then God says, he knew. God says, no, he's over there. Nichba el hakelim. So I don't know exactly how this works. Like God speaks, and like he spoke twice in history at Mount Sinai and here. Yeah, God speaks. No, he's over there. And they look, and he's nichba el hakelim. What does it mean that he's nichba el hakelim? He's hiding where they store all the baggage. I'm sure in Hartman there's like a storage room somewhere, right? I'm pretty sure you were never there, right? I assume, unless you bumped into it. So he's hiding in the machsan, in the storage room. He's hiding there. So Shmuel said, so they go bring him from the storage room. So they bring him out. And now, so first of all, what do we learn from Shaul? The fact that he's hiding. The point when he is chosen is a point where he's hiding. What does it tell us about Shaul? That itself. What does that tell us about his character, about his personality? What does that tell us about him? He's a shy person. And this can be a major characteristic of Shaul. He's embarrassed. He's hiding. He's hoping somehow this will go over his head and no one will notice. They bring him out. And then it says, okay, they bring him out. This is verse 23. They run, they bring him from the storage room. Now he's standing within the people. And he's higher, he's taller than all the people. Now let's just notice this. Now let's admit, there's nothing more touching than someone that's very tall and very shy. Right? Because you're shy and you're tall. It doesn't fit, right? Because what does it mean to be shy? Don't look at me. But there's a problem, dude. You're very visible. There's a tension there between his psychology, don't look at me, and his biology. I'm very tall. And like that, it's so precious. The tall, shy guy. Like what do you do with your hands? Right? What do you do? So you have the tall, visible, embarrassed. And here you have Shaul. And this is going to be a very strong characteristic of Shaul. Being shy, embarrassed, modest. By the way, can we start understanding why Shmuel likes Dafka Shaul? Why does he like Dafka Shaul? He is not the type that says, look at me, I'll lead you, I'll take care of everything. You see, he's not like the pagan king that has an image that I'm in control of the world. This is second best to not having a king at all. Right? He says, I'd rather not have a king, aval im kvar, if we're going to have a king, let's have this shy, embarrassed, anti-king. The opposite of a king figure. So you can understand why Shmuel, he loves the king. It's not attention. He likes the king, not although he's against the monarchy, but because he's against monarchy. This is why he likes this specific king. And there's something, and the chapter continues, and we could see part of the great qualities of Shaul. The chapter continues. I'm skipping to the end of the chapter, to verse 27. Uvnei Belial amru, but some, what is this? What is scoundrels? Bad guys. Okay, I guess that's what Bnei Belial means. The bad guys said, how can this fellow save us? Why are the Bnei Belial looking at Shaul, and then they say, in Hebrew it's more powerful, Ma yoshienu ze. In 3 words, they're capturing a very strong sentiment. How would this person save us? And then it says, Vayivzuhu. They had no respect for him. Why do people look at this embarrassed guy and they say, he is going to save us? Because what kind of a person do people want? Power, strong, self of security, a sense of security. They look at him and they see this weak guy and they say, Ma yoshienu ze. Vayivzuhu. This is strong Hebrew. They disrespect him. They dismiss him. Velo yaviu lo mincha. They don't offer him any of the offerings. They don't accept his authority. Now, interesting, and I think interesting, how does Shaul respond? Vayehi kemacharish. What does it mean, vayehi kemacharish? How is it translated? He pretended not to mind. I don't think that's a good translation. Vayehi kemacharish means they're speaking against him, and he accepts it. He accepts it. He's not going to do what powerful people used to do with opposition, and sometimes still do to opposition. What's the best way to take care of opposition? Yeah, to get rid of the opposition. He has opposition, and he notices it. Vayehi kemacharish. And he just is quiet. He accepts. Now, this is power. Today there's elections in Turkey. Yeah. It's an example of how hard it is for people that have power to accept the fact that some people don't accept their authority. Vayehi kemacharish. This is mensch. This is menschlichkeit. He accepts the fact that not everyone accepts him. We could see why Shmuel likes him. He's modest enough. He could accept it. Okay, not everyone needs to like me. Now, in chapter 12 will be another moment in the establishment of his authority and his charisma and his leadership. Chapter 12, I invite you to read this chapter later carefully. Chapter 12 is a chapter where Shaul You're not. I didn't mean 12. I meant 11. Sorry. So there's a moment where Nachash HaAmoni, Nachash, he's the king of Ammon, attacks a part of a tribe in Yevish Gilad. And if things would be as usual, he would attack Yevish Gilad, the tribes of Israel won't come to help him, and that's things as usual. But now Shaul comes, and he inspires all the tribes to unite under his authority, to protect one tribe of Israel, and to attack the Ammonim, the Ammonites. And he's successful. Now, this is real leadership. This is not because God chose him using the bottle. This is him showing real charisma and uniting the people and uniting all the tribes to save one tribe. Real solidarity under real leadership. Maybe this is a real moment where he is appointed. And this is how the whole story ends. The whole story ends in verse 12. Now he's a hero. Now he saved the people. Now more people admire him. And they say, this is verse 12, that the people say to Samuel, those people that are not accepting Shaul's authority, let's kill them. That's what we should do now. They're so excited from Shaul's being appointed as a king that they want to kill anyone that doesn't accept him. But who stops them? Shaul. He says, no one is going to die today. So Shaul is the one, again, showing what a king is. And a king is the person that can accept the fact that not everyone accepts him. He can accept the fact that not everyone likes him. Now let's ask the obvious question. Shaul, in his first performances, is not emotionally dependent on popularity. He's not emotionally needy for the complete love of the crowd. A few years and chapters later, in Emek HaElah, a new guy is going to appear, and people will still love Shaul after that, just with one twist. They'll still love him, but what will they say and sing? We love Shaul. He's our hero. But we love David more. And how will Shaul react to being downgraded in the measurements of the love of the crowd? How will he react to that? He will become obsessed. And he'll want the love back. So here's the big question. What happened to Shaul? What happened to Shaul that when he just received power, he could accept the fact that not everyone likes him? After a few years in power, he can't accept the fact everyone likes him. He just can't accept the fact that they don't like him the most. What happened to Shaul? What? What happens? This is something so interesting and so, I would say, almost natural and so sad. This is how Thomas Hobbes explained this universal phenomenon. Power is not something that we emotionally need. It's not like we need empathy. That's something we need emotionally. We need food. We need that physically. Power is not something we need. But once you have power, you start needing it. Before you had it, you don't need it. Once you have it, it becomes a need. And the way Hobbes describes it, so now once you have power, you become starved for power. So you need more power. And that more power doesn't relax your starvation. What does it do? It increases it. So the more power you have, the more you feel like you don't have it. And this is the syndrome that led people like Lord Acton to say that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Because power is like, I don't know if this is a good example, but maybe it is. For what it's worth, I have it in my mind, so I'll share it. There is heroin. Heroin is something that no one needs. No one's like, I need heroin. No one needs heroin. But once you take it, now when you take heroin, you're not satisfying a need. You're creating a need. Power, we don't have a need for power, but once we have it, we have the need for it. And Shaul in the beginning, he's fine with the fact that not everyone accepts him, admires him, loves him, will die for him. He's fine with that. After a few years in power, he can't live without it. So in our emotional relationship with power, when it becomes something, as long as it's something that he had, it was fine. When it's something that he needed, it becomes the problem. We could see, following Shaul's biography, how he changed. Now, one would say, well, that is a universal phenomenon. No one could escape that phenomenon. There is a great story of Rabbi Nachman Mibreslev. This is a story within a story in Rabbi Nachman, where it's a story about a king that is going to, that is, before he dies, he delivers the kingdom to his son. And there was a big party. And the astrologist tell the king, listen, we have bad news. Your son is going to screw the whole thing up and lose the kingdom. And the king is happy. And ask him, why are you happy? We just told you, your son is going to lose the kingdom. And so he's happy. This is why you're happy. And he says, this is why I'm happy. If after my son loses the kingdom, if he's still happy after that, so I'm happy. Why? If after he loses the kingdom, he's still happy, so I'm happy. Why? He's my son. I want him to be happy. If he's still happy, I'm happy. If he becomes upset after he loses the kingdom, then I'm happy. I'm happy he lost the kingdom. Power should only belong to people who don't need it. Once you need it, you don't deserve it. So the paradox that Rabbi Nachman performs, if when he loses the kingdom he's happy, I'm happy because he's happy. And if he becomes depressed, I'm happy he lost the kingdom. He didn't deserve it in the first place. Somehow Shaul failed the Rabbi Nachman test, right? Somehow he became addicted to the power. Why? Okay, so we could say, one explanation, it's a universal phenomenon. Power, you become attracted to it. It defines you. It becomes who you are. You can't identify yourself without it. And we know all the examples. That's one. But maybe there's something specific in Shaul that makes him more vulnerable to this phenomenon, which I want to take us now to another step, a fourth step into Shaul. And I think the person who really finally understood Shaul was Shmuel when he confronts him after he doesn't destroy the spoils of war after the battle with Amalek. So that's where I want to go now. So far, are we clear all these steps? Are we good? Any questions? We're good? Okay. So I want to understand, how does Shmuel understand Shaul? And there's a moment where Shmuel, where we could see what Shmuel thinks about Shaul. And I'm talking now about chapter 15. You have 15? Good. I want to read 4 verses in chapter 16, but the context is, I explained the context when we started. 15. Yes, the Tvav is 15. So the context is the battle with the Amalekites. I could identify with the problem of Shaul. How do you recruit soldiers to go to a war where you will not benefit from the spoils of victory? You have to destroy all the lamb, all the camels, everything you'll get from Amalek. You have to destroy. That's the kind of war this is. And so, how do you motivate soldiers to go to that kind of a war? Yes. Yeah, so he cheated. He said, come to war and, it will take a bit. So they go to war. He violates the commandment. They bring home everything that they've captured from the enemy. They enjoy the spoils of war and they violate the commandments. In the meantime, God sees that. He tells Samuel, Shaul didn't pull it off. Shaul did not do my will. Go tell him he's fired. Samuel, okay, I'll go tell him he's fired. Now he goes to him, and this is what he says to him when he has to tell him that he's fired. And I think what he describes captures the problem of Shaul. He says, this is verse 17. I'm going to read the Hebrews. I'm going to read this in Hebrew, then try to translate this. But you could read it in parallel in English in verse 17. Vayomer Shmuel, and Shmuel says to him, Halo im katon ata be'einecha, Rosh Shivtei Israel ata. That, I would say, everything that we've tried to understand about Shaul is packed in these words. Halo im katon ata be'einecha, which means you might feel like you're small. You might have a very low self-esteem. You might think that you're nothing. That's what we've established. He's shy, he's embarrassed, he's modest, he thinks he's nothing. That's all the reasons why Samuel fell in love with him. Because he doesn't think much of himself. And he says, but Rosh Shivtei Israel ata. You're the leader of the tribes of Israel. Now he captures, Halo im katan ata be'einecha, if you are small in your own eyes, you are the leader of the people of Israel. And he captures the tension created between the psychology of Shaul and the status of Shaul. Psychologically, he feels very low. Politically, he's on the top. And what happens when there's a gap between the power you have and the image you have of yourself? When you think you're nothing and you own so much power, what happens? Well, this is what happens. According to Shmuel, the problem is that this person with a very low, with a very that doesn't think much of himself. What? A low self what? Esteem. I'm looking for a different word. In Hebrew, I would say dimuy atzmi nemuch. He has an image. His self-image is low. Can you say that? Self-image? Is that a word or just making this up? That's okay. So he has a very low self-image and very high public image. He's the king. And that gap is the gap. I think that was the gap. Because of that gap, he was chosen. Because of that gap, now he's fired. Why? Why is this gap explained as failure? So in verse 24, I'm skipping. This will explain why that gap is the explanation for his failure. Shaul, this is a complicated dialogue. His first excuse was, I took all the spoils of war. I took all these sheep and all this in order to sacrifice for God. I did it because I'm frum, because I'm religious. That's why I did it. And Shmuel says, that's not a good excuse. God doesn't want sacrifice. God just wants you to do what he says. And after the excuse fails, so he moves from the excuse to the truth. And he's exposed and he's vulnerable. And I think this is going to be, I think, the key to understanding Shaul. Verse 24. Vayomer Shaul el Shmuel. You see verse 24? Chatati ki avarti et pi Adonai. You're right. No excuses. I have sinned. Vet dvarecha. I've sinned because I violated God's words and yours. Why? Ki yareti et ha'am va'eshma bakolam. I was afraid of the troops. I was afraid of the people. So I listened to them. In the end, why did Shaul take the spoils of war and violate God's words? He was afraid of the people. What will they say? If I won't give them what they want, they won't accept me, they won't like me, they won't love me. Obviously, a leader needs to lead the people. Shaul was a leader that was led by the people. Ben Gurion, which you saw his movie yesterday, said, don't ask what the nation wants, ask only what the nation needs. When you satisfy what they want, you're just searching for popularity. Are you willing to sacrifice your popularity in order to do what the nation needs? With Aaron? Yes, Aaron also failed the popularity. That's right. Aaron also failed there in Chet HaEgel. 100%. It was Moshe that was beyond that. That's right. So the explanation, why is it that Shaul is so needy of the love of the crowd. Why is he so needy of the love of the crowd? I think Shmuel explained us. Why is he so? He failed because he couldn't stand it that the crowd won't love him. See, this is, I want to make a very simple textual argument. He doesn't destroy the spoils of war for the same reason why he does destroy all the priests of Nov and obsessively try to kill David. Why does he obsessively try to kill David? Because he wants to be popular. Why does he not kill all of Amalek? Because he wants to be popular. For the same reason he doesn't use for the same reason that he doesn't use force, he uses force. It's one explanation. He wants to be loved. He wants to be accepted. And why does he have a need to be accepted? Well, here's a problem with modesty. Here's the problem with having a very low self-esteem and thinking that you're nothing. When you don't appreciate yourself, when a sense of worthy doesn't come from within, where do you get a sense of worthy? From the outside. So, you see, my argument is the following. The reason why Shmuel fell in love with Shaul was because he had a very low self-esteem. Why did he have to fire Shaul? Because he had a very low self-esteem. It turns out, and this is what Shmuel couldn't figure out. I mean, this is the mistake of Shmuel. I'm saying this knowing this is Shmuel Hanavi. The mistake of Shmuel is almost a intuitive mistake we always made. We make a mistake that we see a low self-esteem as an expression of virtue. Wow, he thinks he's nothing. What a great person. But low self-esteem might mean that your sense of worthy will have to come from other people, and then you'll be obsessively chasing after popularity. Who is more liberated from the gaze of the public, from the need of the love of the public? Who's more liberated? Somebody that actually thinks he has value. If you think you have value, you don't have to chase for a sense of value, and therefore obsessively chase for popularity, which will lead him to obsessively attack David and not attack like he needed to the Amalekites. What is modesty? What is modesty? Okay, so I would like to offer a definition for modesty. I think many times we confuse modesty with a low self-esteem. Aristotle, well, there's different takes on Aristotle, but the way I understand Aristotle is the following. Modesty is when the image you have of yourself represents who you actually are, which means if I'm funny and I think I'm funny, that makes me modest. If I'm not smart, but I think I'm smart, that makes me not modest. Or, if I am smart and I think I'm not smart, that makes me not modest. What is modesty? Modesty is not that I think less of myself. Modesty means that I actually I understand who I am. I understand myself. And when that happens, maybe you're more liberated from the need to generate a sense of worthy from the public, and you don't become the kind of leader that's obsessively chasing popularity in a constant popularity contest. There is a Gemara in the end of Masechet Sotah. In Traktat Sotah, this is how it ends. It ends in an interesting source where they give compliments to people. And here's what they say. They say, Mishemet Rabbi Yoshua Batla Itza Mina Aretz. I think I'm quoting it correctly. So ever since Rabbi Joshua died, wisdom has evaporated. That's not saying that there's still probably more wise people. What are they trying to say? He was so wise that it feels like there are no more wise people. Mishabet met Ben Azai batlu darshanim. When Ben Azai died, there are no more great darshanim. How do you say darshanim? What? Okay, commentators, preachers. But that's trying to say that Ben Azai was that good, that there's a feeling that there's no one that delivers such great sermons after he dies. And then this is how it ends. Mishemet Rebbe, after Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the editor of the Mishnah, dies, Batla Nava. After Rebbe died, there's no more modesty in the world. Batla Nava. That's how modest he was. That when he died, there's a sense of void. There's no more modesty because there's no people that are so modest like he was. And then Rabbi Yosef comes around and he says, no, I disagree. There still is modesty in the world. Ika ana. You have me? Now, for years I thought that this is Talmudic sense of humor. Of course there's modesty. There's me. But now I think maybe it's not sense of humor. Maybe it's not a joke. Maybe what Rabbi Yosef is saying, if the person, maybe this is an Aristotelian understanding of modesty. Then what does it mean to be modest? If he really is a modest person. Oh, and Rabbi Yosef has a lot of drashot. He has a lot of, like he's the one that says that we should learn modesty from Sinai. That God brought from the Torah, that God put the Torah on the lowest mount. Like we should learn. He has a lot of thoughts about modesty. And he says, so don't say that there's no more modest people in the world because you have me, so I'm a representative of modesty. Ika ana. There's me. And maybe what he's saying is, maybe that's the definition of modesty. If you are actually a modest person, and the image you have of yourself represents that, that is not a paradox, that's not an oxymoron, that is an expression of modesty. There's in the mystical tradition, like in the Sufi tradition, and also it's within to Jewish mystical tradition, like in Chassidut, there is a midah, there is a character that some people try to shape their character in light of that, called ishtavut. What is hishtavut? Hishtavut, this is how it's explained, that your emotional system is completely independent of what other people think about you. Here's the thing. Let's say I can have a monitor on your emotional system, and it goes up and down, right? And I think most people, if you give them a compliment, how would the monitor look like? Goes up. I think for 99% of people, I never met anyone that's truly immune to a compliment. I met a lot of people that do as if they don't care. Yeah. but yeah, I know. But if you ever see teenagers playing basketball, something I'd like to see, then somebody scores from the 3-point, scores, and he's so happy, and he's trying to disguise. He's like trying to be cool, like, yeah, I do that all the time. So I don't know why that bumped in. So no one's immune to a compliment, and no one is immune to an insult. If you insult someone, they'll feel terrible. The difference between us, how long does it take you to shake it off and to come back? Some people it takes them days. Some people are more resilient. Hishtavut means, this is how it's explained, is that somebody gives you a compliment or insults you, no matter what the compliment was, no matter what status he or she had, the monitor will show flat. Meaning you are liberated from the gaze of the public, from what people think. Personally, I don't think that hishtavut is something we should try to shape our character. A lot of hishtavut. I think it's good, Jews. I think it's good to be emotionally connected to other people. But if hishtavut is one extreme, Shaul, or I don't know how to call this, Shaulism is the other extreme. Is when everything you feel is completely dependent on what others think and feel about you. And I just want to notice, which one is modest? The Hishtavut or Shaul? Which one is modest? Well, obviously, if modesty is about not having if a good definition of modesty is, I don't have a need to be seen. I don't have to act out in order to grab attention. If I don't have a need to be seen, the person who doesn't have a strong, obsessive need to be seen is a person that thinks highly of himself. Which takes me to the following conclusion. If modesty is the heart of Derech Eretz, the way to work and shape modesty is not to think bad things about yourself. It's actually to lift your self-esteem. By lifting your self-esteem, you're not becoming less modest, you're becoming more modest. By lifting your own self-esteem, you're liberating yourself from your need to chase popularity, to act out, to grab attention, to make room for other people in the room. And which takes me back, I know I'll open this up, it takes me back. Why is it that Shaul was so sensitive to power and to fame that once he tasted it, it transformed him and became obsessed about it? I think it can happen to everyone. But the more you have a strong value of yourself and a higher self-image and stronger self-esteem, the less sensitive you will be to the corrupting effect of power. So that was my spiel. Thank you for following me through. Thank you for following me through. And you want me to go over in points what I just did, just so we can have it in your head? Shall I go over in just the major points we went through before we open this for Q&A? Okay. So my first tension I want to point out is a tension is that Shmuel, the anarchist, is the founder of monarchy. And then we asked, okay, the founder of monarchy, the person that's against monarchy loves the king. We try to figure out, why does he love the king? Because he has a small, because he maybe identifies modesty with a low self-esteem, and he's embarrassed, and he's an anti-king. He's second best to having no king. And we've noticed that maybe that was the reason for his sin, for his obsession to kill David, to slaughter the priests of Nov. The same reason why he saved Amalek, he killed Nov. So that was what we tried. And in the end, the person who nailed it and recognized it was Shmuel himself. Im katonata be'inecha, you feel like you're nothing, but you're in control of everything. And that gap is leading you to become an obsessive leader, obsessed about popularity. And leaders that need to be popular are very weak leaders. Okay, so that was, let's open this up. So let's start. Doing my lecture, someone over there in the back was maybe yawning or raising their no? Please. No, so what's your take on David? So David is in a very deep sense, David is the opposite of Shaul. He's not chasing popularity, and he is extremely popular. He doesn't have that need to be loved because David, well, there is one person David loves very, very much. And I think that makes him, the fact that he appreciates his qualities, and he knows, that makes him a very strong leader. He doesn't have the need to be constantly, to be loved and accepted. In that sense, David is a stronger leader than Shaul and a more modest leader than Shaul because he thinks highly of himself as opposed to Shaul. Yes. Yeah. Well, if God wouldn't have told wouldn't have chose Shaul, we wouldn't have had this story. No, I'm serious. And if he wouldn't have had this story, we couldn't have learned this about our leaders and our problems and our characters. So we had to have this story. Right? I mean, if everyone in the Bible would be perfect, there wouldn't be no Bible. Yes. Again. Yeah. Now, I tell you where I think we see Moshe's modesty. We see Moshe's modesty at a moment where Moshe decides that he wants to create an establishment of prophets. Now, it's almost an oxymoron. Prophecy is spontaneous and it's spiritual, and he wants to create an establishment of prophets. So he takes 70 of the elders of Israel, and he'll inspire them to be prophets. And now he's taking prophets, he's making an establishment that he controls, and then two people, not a part of the establishment, the names are Eldad Umeidad, are prophesizing outside of the establishment. So Joshua comes to him and says to him, Eldad Umeidad bitnabim machane. These two people are not participating in the establishment. They're prophesying outside the establishment. Adoni Moshe klaim. He's telling Moses, well, you lost control over spirituality. There are people that have their own individual agenda. Lock them up. Adoni Moshe klaim. Which is what they would do throughout history. Anyone with his own spiritual agenda is a threat to the establishment, of course. Send them to a gulag. That's what you do, right? And then Moshe turns to Yoshua and says to him, Hamekane ata li. Are you worried about my figure, my authority, my need to be upset, have control over every expression of spirituality? And he says the following line, Mi iten. He has now a dream. V'kol am Adonai nevi'im, ki iten Adonai et rucho aleim. He's saying, I wish I would lose my monopoly over prophecy. I wish all the people of Israel be prophets like me. And they won't prophesy like this establishment prophesizing from my prophecy as an extension of myself, but they'll have their own direct relationship with God. So Moshe doesn't have a need for control. He doesn't have that need for control. By the way, and that is his modesty. He doesn't have the need to be number one, which makes him number one. He doesn't have the need to prophet. That's I understand and this is something that Shaul doesn't have. And but by the way, Moshe has his own problems. We're speaking about Derech Eretz. We have to know that the Bible presents us with heroes that are not perfect, training our minds to accept the fact that perfection is not something. Like playing sometimes we play an all or nothing game. We expect someone to be perfect, therefore we admire him or her. Then we realize they're not perfect, so we completely reject them. So either you admire someone because they're perfect, or they're not perfect, and you don't admire them. The Bible cultivates admiration for people that are not perfect. And I think by doing that, it's training our minds to accept the fact that the world is not perfect. Moshe had a different problem. He had rage attacks. He sees an Egyptian hitting a Hebrew, and what does he do? He kills him. The next day, he sees a Hebrew hitting another Hebrew, and what does he do? He's about to kill him. He brings the tablets down from the hill. He sees the people worshiping the golden calf. What does he do? He has a thing. And this is Nachmanides. In the last part of the week of yesterday, what was his, according to this is Maimonides, what was his sin when he hit the rock? It was a sin of anger, which means Moshe was close to perfection, but there was something, according to Maimonides, this is Maimonides' read, not balanced in Moshe. And can we say that Moshe is our leader, our rabbi, knowing he has rage, knowing he's not perfect? Only when we can do that can we come into terms with the fact that we're not perfect. Rav Kook has a great saying here. He says, only God is perfect. This works in Hebrew. And it says that God has shlemut, and human beings can only have hishtalmut, which means God is perfect, and what we can enjoy is the process of perfection, would you say, hishtalmut? Working towards perfection. Yes. Intellectual modesty. I think the greatest siman heker, indication for intellectual humility is curiosity. When people lose their curiosity, it either means that many times it means because they lost their humility. Like that, as long as you're with, like, in my interaction with people that have power, I'm very sensitive if they have that moment where they say, really? Like they're surprised. I didn't know that. If they still have that, I know they're alive. If they still have curiosity, but if you're like this, they're the smartest person in the room. Yeah, I figured that out already. Yeah. If they lost, they're not alive anymore. So I would say the greatest indication of humility is not, oh, I'm so humble, don't look at me, it's curiosity. Your eyes open, trying to figure it out, realizing you didn't figure it out. Yes? No. This is okay. The problem of Shaul is a psychological problem. The problem we have is built into the political system. And politics used to look like this. If you were a smart leader and a great leader, you realized I have to be popular one day a year. One day every 4 years, right? I could be not popular for 3.5 years. I'll try to be popular again towards the elections, right? And then they start doing polls. So you say, okay, the days where I could be unpopular for 3.5 years and then be popular again for half a year, which means at 3.5 years where I can ask what the people need and not what the people want. Because any decision that is good for the public on the long term will be by definition unpopular. Because if the fruits are long term, the price that the public will pay is immediate. So almost any decision that is a good decision is unpopular, right? So it used to be, okay, we'll invest all this money here and do this, and hopefully by the elections it will be ready. But then you start doing polls every few months, and you want to be up in the polls because that will give you the image of power is power. You need to be up in. But now the gap between decision and feedback is immediate. You make a decision and you get your feedback immediately on Facebook, which means politics taking place on social media is the politics of Shaul. It's a politics where everyone has a political need to be popular immediately. And that creates very weak political system. By the way, it also breaks the ability to reach compromises. Because compromises, there is this phenomenon that Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky learned, that is that every decision, there'll be something you gain and something you lose, right? By definition. But the people suffer from what we lose more than they enjoy from what they gain, right? Let's say if you give someone 1,000 shekel raise in their salary, they'll be a little bit happy. If you cut their salary 1,000 shekels, they'll be very upset because it's called and I know they didn't say this in Hebrew, sinat ifsid. It's the hate. It's the hate of losing is stronger than the love of winning. So as a result of this phenomenon, so every compromise you'll ever reach, there'll be something you lose and something you gain. Because people will always overvalue what we lost and underestimate what we gain because of that phenomenon. So it's very hard to reach compromise. And when compromises are measured immediately on Facebook, the feedback is immediate. Everybody's trying to avoid compromise, which is polarizing democracies around the world. So this has to do with our conversation yesterday. Social media has an effect on politics. And if we have to ask, how do we overcome the politics of Shaul, the politics of immediate popularity, creating a politics of people that are willing to suffer a drop in their popularity in the service of their country, we'll have to rethink how do we use social media. It's not only about the psychology like Ishtavut. This has to do also not only using Marshall McLuhan's language, not only with the message, and it probably has to do with reshaping the medium that we're using to share the message. Yes?
I'm not sure whether I think that self-esteem is so critical for modesty, but I think that self-efficacy probably is very important.
What is self-efficacy?
Self-efficacy is the belief that you can accomplish a task. And for me, the best definition of modesty is something that Eleanor Roosevelt was supposed to have said, that it's amazing what we get done when we don't care who can get credit for it.
Right. It's amazing what you can done when you don't care who takes credit for it. Right. Yes.
Also, I don't disagree with anything you said, but the view of democracy we were just talking about, it could be that people are smart enough to see character. We can't necessarily conclude that people are so short-term in everything. It's possible, and we have chosen great leaders. People have to do that.
Yep. Yes.
But in reality, a true leader will do what he believes is right, and not necessarily what the people think. If you take a look at guys like Herzl, guys like Ben-Gurion.
Yep, I think 100%. Here's a question I have with no answer. Would we have a Herzl? Would we have a Ben-Gurion that in 1946 is starting to waste public funds to build an army because he sees what nobody else sees? We're going to have a war, and people are starving, and he's buying weapons. Could Ben-Gurion do that when he has to explain himself on a minute-to-minute politics of Facebook? Would we have a Ben-Gurion? Yes. Or let's say, maybe we have a Ben-Gurion among us, but it can't emerge in a world where you have to have immediate feedback for every political thought and decision you make. So this is, I think, so we did have great leaders. My question, it's a question, it's not an answer. Can we still have great leaders? Yes.
I'm struggling with the story of Rabbi Nachman and Breslov.
Yes.
Where you mentioned that the leader said he'd be happy if his son lost the country or lost control, because either way, whether his son was happy, his son would be happy, or if his son was unhappy, then he didn't deserve it. And that frame is that the leader is a leader for him or herself, as opposed to a leader for the people. And a lot of the framing that you use and the framing of how you evaluate a leader is their own self-worth, as opposed to their dedication to the people is a problematic framing of how we evaluate. I think, we use the term civil servant in the United States as someone who's in service to others, and so I think the distinction might be selfish as opposed to...
I agree with you. That statement of the king in the story of Rabbi Nachman, thinking it's just about how his son feels now. That's not very civil servant-ish. But it's a nice story. Yes. I think one last question, and then we're done. Yeah, no, actually, I think I'm speaking about. I think. Well, first of all, I think there are a few characteristics to great people and to great leaders, but I think I'm speaking about a good person. I think we're speaking about a good person, and if people who are obsessed with popularity and love, they're not really fun to be with, right? And they make horrible politicians too. All right.